Okay, I've got boys here, so we'll move ahead. As I promised you, I did a pre-recorded screencast. Had a medical thing to deal with, and then I had also said I would provide you at least one more supplemental broadcast. Let's go to the announcements for just a minute so we kind of know what's going on. And there is the link to the pre-recorded, the YouTube link to the pre-recorded session. And we covered Truman Assembly, and that's case number 12. Now, the next Excel case is specific trading, okay? And we're working through these because I know when we hit the database cases, it will slow down considerably. Now, let me get over there to the Pacific trading, and if you take a look there, and this is in the Solve It textbook, Pacific page 119, you'll note that the book says spreadsheet case 12. That's not true. It's actually spreadsheet case 13. Okay. Now, again, this is related to this business of the analytical cube and getting a look at data from more than just a two-dimensional perspective. And so I wanted to make sure that we do that. Before we talk some more about that, and then because we're going to be working with the with pivot tables, that's a prelude to working with the database. Before we do this, I'm going to pop over here on the syllabus and see what all is due. Remind everybody. And this is Friday the 29th, and this you have two assignments that are you had two assignments due yesterday, okay, and really three: the break-even quiz, then the quiz over the few texts, that's the big one, show me the numbers, and then to upload XLS7, which you should have done. You will see these sometimes, and when you see some of these, those are special situations sometimes, so don't let that throw you when you see something like that. Nonetheless, those are the three assignments that are due on the 29th of September at 6 o'clock. Now, that being said, we're going to take a look, and we've been moving forward here, okay? And we're now ready to look at XLS 13, which is specific trading. And once, I'll walk you through the case, and then I'll have a solution over there in the files area, this files section of Canvas that you can use to upload here. Okay. Well, I want to go back into the modules for a moment and talk about something that we did as we started the course, and of course, and let me get that all opened up. This is a welcome. And I'm going to search here for the analytical cube. Okay. See a lot of stuff going on here. Sure, here it is, the analytical cube, but I'm going to download it. You don't have to, but I'm going to download it because it's I published. So I'm going to get it. Let's open it up, and then we can download the file. Well, we don't even really need to. It popped up real nicely here today. That's good. Now, I want you to notice, as I mentioned before, we're talking about getting a deeper look at the data that we have at our company. And I've emphasized to you over and over again that what we're doing is helping you develop your skills at creating, if necessary, but more likely using and working with a dashboard, okay? And it's driven by the need for us to get data for decision making, which is the same thing as information, okay? And business intelligence, which we have a textbook for this course that covers that field, is how I take the data that I have about my operations inside my company. I get data about what's going on outside the company, in other words, its environment, and we go from there. This is the analytical cube, and notice what we have. We have product, okay? We have retailer. We have time frame. That's a third dimension. That's a third dimension or variable we're looking at. We're looking at revenue, okay? And so you can see we've got 1, 2, 3, and really 4 ways to look at this data. But with a database, as we'll see when we get the database cases, or with pivot table, as we'll see today with Pacific Trading, we can look at that using all of those dimensions and see what the data are telling us, okay? Now, I understand that there are many of you who have great aversion to working with numbers, and this whole technology thing, you're not sure about it. All I can say to you is this. First of all, numbers, all of you are smart enough to handle the math, to handle the algebra. You guys can do this stuff. It's just a matter of doing it. And look, companies have to measure how they're doing, and they have to know how they may be doing in the future. So part of this issue, and we've talked about the data cube, we've talked about business intelligence, is this idea of what we call a KPI, a key performance indicator, all right? Now, depending upon where you are, what level you are in an organization, or what part of an organization you're going to have, you will have a dashboard of one kind or the other that you'll be working from throughout your career, okay? And so what we want you to do is to understand how and why we use it. This exercise, in this case, Pacific Trading, lets me also show you how versatile and how easy to use and how powerful are pivot tables. They are fantastic tools because they give us the best of both worlds, the best of a database and the best of a spreadsheet. And we're going to see that as we work out with it. As you see here, there are all these questions. These would also be called queries, okay? And when we go and work in Access, we're going to run queries. We'll be asking questions, basically. So that's a key thing I wanted to talk to you about, okay? And now, let's go over, and we're still here in the files area, and let's click on that, okay? And we're going to work on Pacific Trading, okay? Now I'm going to see, first of all, if I have a key for it, because if I do, I'll want to make sure that I go ahead and publish it, and I'm looking to see if I do. And let me see here. I might have it scheduled in XLS 13 done. Okay, now, all right, I'm gonna, this is published, okay, and let's look at it for just a moment. So we'll download it. Okay. Okay. Now, just to be on the safe side, all right, I'm okay if you upload this for XLS 13. Okay, let me repeat. I'm okay if you upload this. It's published, so it's not an issue. Let's look at the first tab, all right, and let's talk about what we have here. Now, in the textbook, Pacific Trading, they talk about this company, all right, and there at the top of 119, they talk about preparing what they call ad hoc reports. Those are reports that management just says, I'm just wondering about X, Y, and Z. Are they related, or can we get some kind of clue about them? Okay, so that's something that we want to talk the textbook. Now there are also what we call periodic; those are regular reports. Okay, but there are those times when we're asked to prepare an ad hoc report. Management just says the sales are falling in our South region. What's going on? Okay. Now, this is one of those situations where management has some questions or some things they're interested in finding out, and they want us to plumb through and slice and dice through a set of data. Now, before I go any further here, if you take a look at page 119, all right, you're going to see there's the usual business about the company. They sell organic products, fruits and vegetables, and they Pacific Trading, who they are and their manager, and then you get at the bottom we have our protagonist who's taken an advanced course in Excel, and the folks there at the company have all these questions about different things. If you take a look at page 120, you're going to see right in the middle of it are 4 tasks that they want you to perform. Okay? Now, let's talk about, first of all, what we're looking at here. This is a table of data. Now, if you look at this table, you're going to find it consists of, let's go 7 down to 75. So it consists of 69 records. Okay? What's a record? Well, a record is a collection of pieces of data for a column, i.e., a variable, also known as a dimension. Now, because these records have dates and amounts, we call these fact tables. Okay? This is a listing of everything they've sold. Okay? And we could play with it if we want to, put it in the dates we want. We can do a little bit of work with that. All right? And so we're going to do that for just a second, because we're going to do some preliminary work before we go in and we do the pivot table. And so I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to come to sort and filter, and I'm going to do a custom sort. All right, and I put my data has headers, and I'm going to sort it by date, and I'm going to take from the newest to the oldest. We can do either one, but we're going to do newest, the most recent to the other. Then we're going to add this is our primary sort. Then we're going to add a level. And we're going to do a secondary sort. Okay. And we're going to do the city. Okay. And we're going to put them in alphabetical order. And then we're going to add a tertiary, what we call a third level. Okay. And we're going to do store type. Okay. And we'll put them in alphabetical order. All right. Then we're going to add another level. This is a 4th level. And we're going to look at the items sold. Okay. And we're going to add another level, and we're going to look at the store type, the city, the items sold, and the sales. Okay. And let's add one more level, and that will be the seller. Let's see if we left anybody out. There's 6 level. There's 6 variables there. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got, yeah, okay, store. Okay, so now we're ready to do this, and the cells we're going to take largest to smallest, and we're going to run this sort. All right. Now this shows us our sales all the way back to the start of 2008 and all the way up to our last record of sales. So we have them by date. You'll see we've got some dates where they're multiple. Okay. Now we've organized these data pretty well, and we can come back here and click on the custom sort, and it'll show us. Okay. And we can adjust that and change that as we care to. It just doesn't matter. But still, there's more to do. Now, we could come in here, okay, and we take all these data, and we can filter them. And so we'll come back over here to sort and filter, and we can try to apply a filter, although it's not going to do us a whole lot of good. If we're interested in just a particular date, we can do that. So we've got some options, okay? But we have a better option if we use a pivot table, and that's what we're going to do here. I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to walk us out of all the stuff we did, okay? And I'll click on the custom sorts. I think that's all done. Yeah. Okay. And it's ready for us to sort if we choose to, but we've gotten rid of it. All right. Now, we have our protagonist here, and this is Maria Galambos. She's the business manager. Has all these folks are asking these crazy questions. That's why we call them ad hoc, just off the top of somebody's head. And since they know that she can do Excel and do some work with pivot tables and so forth, then they've gone nuts. Now, this is a very common thing that happens. And companies sometimes can engage in the paralysis by analysis. They do too much analysis, okay? On the other hand, you always want to have periodic reports, regular reports. And if you look up here, all right, if you can have a report generated on just, okay, what date did we sell the most stuff? What item did we sell the most of? I'm working on most. What city did we have the largest sales? How much was how much is our total sales aggregate? What seller, that is our salesperson, who sells the most? And what type of store do we sell the most in? And then we can say the same thing, those same set of questions, least of all, okay? So we're going to see some of that, and the beauty of a pivot table is I can answer most of those questions, okay? Now, it's important to understand that we're going to generate some solutions here, but they have to be put in context, and that's where you'll be able, once you've worked in a place for a while in a particular industry, you'll figure out the culture of the company, that is how they kind of operate. You'll figure out the industry and how it kind of operates, and you'll be able to see more meaning within the data, okay? And that's just something that comes with experience. Well, let's look at those tasks. And task number 1. During what month are peaches most in demand in Eugene? Now, I know you've waited all your life to find that out, okay? And let's look at task number 1, okay? Now, before you do that, I just want to show you how we generate a pivot table. I'm going to come up here to A7, and I'm going to scroll all the way down to I think it's F75. Okay, F75. I'm going to click Insert, and I'll get the pivot table dialog box. Now, if I want to, I can put the pivot table in the existing worksheet. Okay, or I could create a new worksheet. I tend to be the type, I like to see a new worksheet. What's this? Well, if I have this database connected to this Excel file connected to another Excel file or another database or to a SharePoint server or anything, I can throw data in here from there. We're going to do just a simple pivot table here for just a minute, and we're going to click New Worksheet. Okay? Now, we're in the Pivot Table Tools. Okay? We've got the design. We have the field list. We have the plus or minus buttons. We have the field headers. And I want to show you what we got here. This is the place where we make choices, and the result of our choices show up over here. Now, there are four components or parts of a pivot table, and think of the report filter as a window. Then the column labels, that's what you run across the columns, then rows, and then values. Okay? So it has that way of organizing. And I'm just going to do for a moment, I'm going to take date and put it in here. I'm going to choose the date, and I can click that. Now, if I don't like it being, if I don't like it being in the rows, I can put it in columns and say, oh, no, it's too much, you can't see it. I'm fine. I can even put these dates in here, and I can get a count. How many dates, how many days of sales record do I have? We'll put them in here for rows. Now, I wanted to click on sales, and notice it gives me the sum of sales, okay, for every single day. How much did we do? Okay. Now, if I wanted to, I can click here on what we call value field settings. I can get the count. How many sales did we record that day? We'll look at that for a second. We can go back to value field settings, and we could, instead of the count, we could do the average sales that day. That's what makes pivot tables such a tremendous tool, because I can do some work here. I'm just going to get the sum of sales for that date, and then if I want to, which it already does for me, I can see my grand total. Now, I'm going to want to click on home, and I probably want to go ahead and put that. Notice I clicked on there and I turned it into accounting. So it looks all pretty. So now if you say, well, how much did you sell? We're good. Okay. Now if you said, well, what does this look like in terms of the type of store? I'll click here and I'll put in the columns. This shows me by date how much I sold. Okay. So that just kind of gives you a feeling of how we use them. Well, let's go ahead and we'll close this off. Okay. And this thing called Sheet 2. And let's click on task number 1. Okay. And we'll look at that. And here's the question that they ask us. Okay. This is over on page 120. During what month are peaches most in demand in Eugene? Okay. let's look what we did over here. We did a report filter, okay? That's the big picture. And notice up here is the city, it's Eugene. We can choose any one of these other, there are 4 cities that we sell to. We chose Eugene, okay? Now if I wanted to choose another, if I wanted to choose 2 of them, I could click select multiple items, and I'm good. I'm not gonna do that. We just wanna know about how do we do, how many peaches do we sell? What's the greatest demand? Okay, well, let's look at this. The next thing we did was we put in the item, okay? And we've got the column label item, and we can click on that. And we could say peaches and pears, or peaches and plums, but we just chose peaches. Next thing we do is we look at the dates, okay? And here we are. Here are the dates. Now, we got the sum of sales. Here they are. And we can look at this and we can say, okay, during what month are they most in demand? Well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to format these data as currency. And you'll notice I did a conditional, I put them up as dollars, which is fine. And notice I used conditional formatting. And I'll click over here. And we'll put manage the rules. And notice it said, we used a data bar. And the longer or bigger the data bar, this is like a bar graph, basically. Now we could have used a thermal. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to scroll through here. I'm going to click conditional formatting. I'm going to go to color scales. Green's the best. What I'm going to have to do is first, I need to get rid of those bars. So I'm going to click over here and go to clear rules from the selected cells. And then I'll come back with the conditional formatting. I'll do the color scales. And voila. So, the month we sold the most peaches by far was September. So we've answered that question. Okay? So wow. So we took a dive into the data and look at the levels. We've sliced and diced the data by city, by item, by date, and by the sum of sales. Okay? Now, we could say, all right, well, how many sales did you make? Just the count. Well, it's simple. I'll come down here to values, and I'll go value field settings, and I'm going to click count. And as you expect, I've got one count for each of them. So I'll remove the field settings. We can look at the average. Now I'll show you something. When I clicked outside of out of the box, this just appears. I click in here and that appears. Click here. Okay. So we know that it's peaches. Peaches, the month their most demand in Eugene is in September. Let's look at the other towns just for kicks. Instead of Eugene, we'll click Bend. See how they do. Bend, wow, look at that. They have a huge demand for peaches in May. Oh, I know, here it is. Now, I always suggest that you do this. Go ahead and add some borders, just to make it a little easier to read. And now we're going to, and I don't think I need the thermal when we choose the city of Bend. Instead of Bend, let's look at Portland. And we'll see that for Portland, well, it's in February. but it's well, there's but well, it's February because it was $6,000 worth of sales in the month of February. Let's go back to Ben for a minute. Look up here on the city. And they had sales in January, so they had one instance. So and we've looked at Bend. Let's look at Salem. May. But Eugene, we're most interested in. For Eugene, the greatest demand is in September. Now, you could say, look, Dr. Harmon, I'm looking up here at this 3/29/2000 and the 4/10, so that's March and April, and together that's about $4,000. Okay, I'll give you that. All right. You asked what month. Now, if you were to say what months or what quarter, okay, I'd say the quarter, the quarter, the first 3 months will be 1 quarter. That's that 3/29 is taken, and then the second. So you really don't. But if you said, okay, well, during what 2 months or what period do they sell the most? I'd say, okay, in Eugene, they sell in March and April. They sell more than they do in the month of September. But if you ask this specific question, in Eugene, what month do we sell the most peaches, or we have the greatest demand? You've got it right there. So a piece of this is keeping track of the questions, okay, and understanding them. Now, this is one of these where it looks pretty simple. And we've got the share going as far as I can tell. And so I think we're going, we're heading on there. Now, just to make sure, I'm going to do a new share here real quickly. We are recording. And I want to make sure that we are in good shape. So I'm going to give us a new share. I share the screen just to make sure. Okay? Now, anyway, I had to stop and take that call. My apologies. Now, again, looking at these data, you can see maybe they didn't ask the right question, but we got their answer. Let's look at the second task, and these tasks get a little bit more complicated as we go along, okay? And you say, all right, what do you mean? Let's look at task number 2. This is over on page 120. Who's the least productive salesperson? From the information provided by the pivot table, can you suggest any reasons for this person's poor performance? Okay, well, first of all, the first thing that we did was we took the sales and by the seller. We got the grand total, obviously, and then we applied a thermal to see, and it looks like that Baker, okay, has the worst sales. Baker has the lowest, okay. Pochet, I guess, or Pochet has the top, okay, and so we're good to go there. Now, they ask us another question of what might be the reason, okay? Well, let's play around with that for just a minute. Let's take store type and put it into the row, okay? Now, they give us some information that certain types of outlets or stores do better than others. Some are more labor intensive than others, so you spend more time. And if you spend more time, you may not get sales volumes that you would like. So I would want to look at that, this person Baker. And of course, if we see Baker isn't doing well at all in any of these areas. Okay? Baker is just about the lowest in every category. Baker is lowest in every category. Except for this, it barely beats Salat in terms of organic markets. Okay? And it has very, very little sales out of restaurants. So there's a pattern. Baker is indeed. Now, we'll click back in here. And let's put date over here. And we're going to put it in the columns. No, let's put it down here. Put the date under the store type. And so we can come in here and take a look at the date. Okay. And we can see it's not making much difference anyway. Baker is consistently lowest. So it's not a seasonal thing. Okay? So we'll click back inside here. And so we've got the store type. Let's try city. And we added a city layer. Now, Baker has no sales in anywhere, has some sales in Eugene and Bend. Lots of sales to farm stands, but not as much as everybody else. And then we've got Salem. So we're seeing a pretty consistent pattern. All right. Now, I'm going to walk us out of here because, see, these are the kinds of questions that we can go after as we try to figure out. And we looked at, the date, the type of store, the item, the city. So that's a little bit deeper question. And there's a lot of different ways we can look at that. We could just, we could say by city, let's just put the sum of sales by city. We could move city over the row labels. How does Baker do? Baker has no sales in Portland, which I would imagine Portland's the largest city, but Baker has no sales there. So part of this might be that it's the territory. Baker just may not have very good territory. Let's put store type by city, and we start to see that in the city where in Eugene, well, Baker still isn't doing very well. So we have to start asking some questions about, is it an issue of training? We want to explore that as well. But you can see we're coming to a really good confirmation that Baker is not selling like Baker should be selling. And it could be the fact that Baker doesn't have any grocery stores in Eugene, but and doesn't have any grocery stores in Bend, doesn't have any grocery stores in Portland, really has no accounts at all. So I would be one of these people who would probably say, looking at the fact that I see nothing for Portland, this may be an issue that Baker has been squeezed out of the biggest area, whereas everybody else is maybe got routes. Maybe it's a territory issue. I don't know. Well, we're going to walk this back where we were. And again, you can see how we'd have that type of issue. And we're going to look at task 3. Okay, task 3 asks, is sales to restaurants entail more labor than sales to other venues? That makes a lot of sense. Is it worthwhile to continue marketing to restaurants? And then say hint, to have the total show percent of columns, select field settings options, show details, percent is column. All right, let's click on here, and on the come down to the values, and I'll click value field settings, and we're going to show the values. Okay, and we're going to have them. We're going to show the values. I want to find that by percentage. And let's look and see if they're going. So, I'll look real quick here. Field settings options, show data as percent of column. Okay, so we've got the field settings. Okay, let's click on back on this for just a second. Value field settings, and it's going to give us counts, averages. Let's look at the number. Yeah, it's not going to play nice with us, so we'll close that. Wait a minute, here we go. I'll click OK. There we go. Well, not quite. Now, what I'm going to do, and again, we can just, what I would do is, we could try to play with the field value, these field values here. And let's just walk this back for a minute. Okay. And we've got what we do by, and they're talking about getting rid of restaurants. And it's pretty simple. We can get this sum. Let's go ahead and make that into a number we can comprehend, not just a bunch of digits. We'll open this up. Now, what I would do is this. First of all, I take restaurants, and we can divide it by the grand total. Okay. Now that's going to be simple. It'll be equal. Notice it has a name. The pivot table named it, and they basically it's about 14%. So we'll decrease the decimal. And let's just put it in percent form, and then increase the decimal. So it's about 13.9% of our sales. So if we give up restaurants, we're going to lose about 13% of our sales. Okay? So that's task number 3. And we'd have to make a decision about it. We come to task number 4. Okay? And they're talking about we may be spread too thin. So they may be spread too thin over a wide geographic area. And they want to choose a city where closing down or decreasing marketing would have the least negative impact on the company's revenues. Which city should you choose? Well, here we have the total, okay, for each city by type of outlet. You can see that the store type and the city. Now let's move the city above that. I like that. Yeah, there we go. That's a little better. And now we have to ask ourselves, okay, in Bend, Portland, and there's our grand total. Okay? And this becomes now a question of saying, okay, we've got a tough choice, because if you look here, they're spread pretty evenly by city. My recommendation would be, if I was in their shoes, would be to say, okay, probably the one I want to look at is the lowest, okay, and that's Salem. And the one I probably would also say, okay, the one that has the highest restaurant, and that's Salem, because restaurants are so hard to work. Okay, and they say, and remember up here they talk about continuing marketing restaurants because it's more labor than sales to other venues. So if I was going to have to do it, I'd choose Salem, or I would have another choice, and that would be just to stop marketing to restaurants altogether in every territory. Okay. And if I do that, I may not feel as big a hit as I would if I just stopped at Salem. Salem's $44,000. It's right there. But let's add up each of the restaurants. This equals, we'll take that, okay, plus that. And you'll see it's giving these names because the pivot table treats them like a variable, plus that. And there we go. I'll do it again just to be sure, because there's a lot of data in there. So this will equal plus, we're going to go down here to this next one, plus, we got Portland, restaurant sales, plus Salem restaurant sales. Yeah. So we lose 28,000 in sales, okay, which is about, it's probably a little under 10% of the entire thing. So my recommendation would be to maybe, I'd say let's just stop marketing to restaurants. Let's not eliminate the entire city, because $44,000 is a lot harder to replace than 28 grand. Or we might just say, let's stop marketing to restaurants in Portland and in Salem. So that we've got some ways that we can go. Well, I'm going to back this out, of course, and I've done this in a screencast now, so we've got that done. And we looked at tasks 1, task 2, task 3, and 4. Okay? Now, you'll want to save this down to your desktop and then upload it. It's also over there in the files. And this is XLS 13 done. Okay? And it is also published over here so you can upload. So that's what you'll upload for Pacific Trading. Okay, folks, that takes care of this supplemental, and I may tomorrow get us started on looking at databases so we can kind of get ahead, all right? But for now, this would be what we're going to do. But you do have Pacific Q you can upload. Okay? Well, I'm going to stop sharing, okay? And I'm going to stop the recording and end the meeting. Thanks so much.